James Thompson's journey from humble beginnings to becoming a tech billionaire wasn't just a success story, it was a testament to relentless determination. Growing up in a modest neighborhood in Atlanta, he spent countless nights in his parents' garage, tinkering with computers while other kids played outside. His father, a high school teacher, always told him, "Your mind is your greatest asset." Those words would echo through the years ahead. By age 16, James had already developed his first software application, a simple program that helped local businesses manage their inventory. He'd go door to door, pitching his solution to skeptical store owners who couldn't believe a teenager had created something so useful. Some doors slammed in his face, but James kept knocking. Each rejection only fueled his drive. After graduating from Georgia Tech with a computer science degree, James took a huge risk. Instead of accepting lucrative job offers from Silicon Valley giants, he poured his savings into starting Thompson Tech. The first office? His old bedroom at his parents' house, with a makeshift desk made from stacked milk crates and a wooden board. Thompson Tech's breakthrough came when James developed an artificial intelligence platform that could predict consumer behavior with unprecedented accuracy. Major retailers started noticing. Within 3 years, his client list included Walmart, Target, and Amazon. The garage startup transformed into a corporate headquarters in downtown Atlanta, employing over 5,000 people. James never forgot his roots, though. He established scholarship programs for underprivileged students interested in tech, believing that talent could come from anywhere. His company made headlines for its diverse hiring practices and inclusive workplace culture. Forbes featured him on their cover, calling him the people's billionaire. Despite his wealth, James kept a low profile. He drove himself to work, knew every employee's name, and still wore the same watch his father gave him for graduation. His net worth might have hit $3.2 billion, but he remained the same curious, determined person who once worked from his parents' garage. That Tuesday morning started like any other. James was heading to a board meeting, driving his Tesla Model S, not because he loved luxury cars, but because he believed in sustainable technology. His mind was on the upcoming presentation about expanding their youth coding programs when he saw the police lights flashing in his rearview mirror. Little did he know, this routine traffic stop would spark a national conversation about prejudice, power, and the need for change in America's police departments. The morning sun glinted off James Thompson's Tesla as he pulled over to the curb, blue and red lights flashing in his rearview mirror. He'd driven this route to the office hundreds of times before, always following the speed limit, always signaling his turns. The plush leather seat creaked as he reached for his wallet, already preparing his license and registration. Officer Michael Barrett approached the car, his hand resting casually on its holster. James noticed this detail immediately, a small knot forming in his stomach despite his billions in the bank. The tinted window hummed as it rolled down. License and registration, Barrett demanded, not even offering a greeting. His voice carried an edge that seemed out of place for a routine traffic stop. James handed over his documents with steady hands. "May I ask why I was pulled over, officer?" Barrett's eyes narrowed as he studied the license. His gaze shifted between the photo and James's face, then to the luxury car, then back to James. "Step out of the vehicle." "I'm sorry, but I don't understand. I wasn't speeding, and all my documents are in order. I have an important board meeting to attend." I said, "Step out of the vehicle." Barrett's voice rose sharply, drawing the attention of morning commuters walking nearby. A few people slowed their pace, phones discreetly emerging from pockets. James took a deep breath, remembering his father's advice from years ago. Sometimes staying calm is your strongest move. He pressed the record button on his car's built-in camera system, a feature he'd installed after hearing similar stories from other successful black executives. "Officer, I'm respectfully requesting to know the reason for this stop. If there's been a misunderstanding." Barrett yanked the door open, unbuckling James's seatbelt with one rough motion. "You want to play games? Fine. Hands where I can see them." A small crowd had gathered now. James could hear the distinctive sound of phone cameras recording. His mind raced to his upcoming board meeting, to the youth coding initiative he was supposed to present, to the thousands of employees counting on him. All of it now suspended in this moment. "Sir, I'm not resisting," James said clearly, keeping his voice steady for the cameras he knew were rolling. but I have the right to know why I'm being detained. Barrett's response was to grab James's arm, trying to force him from the vehicle. The Tesla's security system automatically began uploading footage to the cloud, technology that would soon prove crucial. A woman's voice called out from the sidewalk, "This isn't right. He didn't do anything." More phones appeared, more witnesses, more evidence of what was quickly becoming a glaring example of everything wrong with the system. James could have fought back, could have resisted, could have let anger take over. Instead, he remained composed, even as Barrett roughly handcuffed him against the car. "I'm James Thompson, CEO of Suntech," he stated loudly enough for the growing crowd to hear. "My office is 3 blocks away. You can verify my identity." "Save it for the station," Barrett snapped, though something in his tone had changed. Perhaps he was finally noticing the expensive cut of James's suit, or the growing number of witnesses, or the fact that his suspect was remarkably calm for someone supposedly dangerous enough to warrant this treatment. But it was too late for second thoughts. The damage was done. Videos were already uploading to social media, and James Thompson, billionaire, innovator, philanthropist, stood handcuffed beside his Tesla, a living testament to how success and wealth couldn't always shield against prejudice. The tension in the air was thick enough to cut with a knife as Officer Barrett tightened the handcuffs around James Thompson's wrists. The morning traffic had slowed to a crawl as drivers craned their necks to witness the unfolding scene. A crowd of onlookers, phones raised high, continued to grow on both sides of the street. "My name is James Thompson," he repeated calmly, his voice carrying across the gathering crowd. "I'm the CEO of Suntech. You can call my office, verify my identity." "I said be quiet." Barrett snapped, though there was a new uncertainty in his voice. The name had clearly registered, but pride or prejudice or both kept him from backing down. A young woman in a Suntech employee badge stepped forward from the crowd. "That's our CEO. I work in his company. What are you doing?" Barrett's face reddened. "Stay back. This is a police matter." James's executive assistant, who had been tracking his car through the company's security system, was already sprinting into action. She'd immediately dialed the police chief's direct line. A number James had been given after hosting a charity event for the police department's youth program just last month. More Suntech employees began gathering, drawn by urgent text messages spreading through the company. Some were crying, others were filming, all were witnessing their visionary leader, a man who had given many of them their first break in the tech industry, being treated like a common criminal. "Officer," James said quietly, still maintaining his composure, "you're making a serious mistake. I understand you're doing your job, but this situation is escalating unnecessarily. Let's talk about this professionally." Barrett's radio crackled to life. The dispatcher's voice was urgent. "Unit 247, be advised. Chief Johnson is en route to your location. Hold your position." The color drained from Barrett's face. In his haste to assert authority, in his rush to judgment, he hadn't run a simple check on his suspect's identity. Now, with dozens of cameras recording, with Suntech employees gathering, with the police chief himself racing to the scene, the reality of his actions began to sink in. James stood quietly, his expensive suit wrinkled from the rough handling, but his dignity intact. He'd faced discrimination before, in college, in business meetings, even after making his first million. But this time was different. This time, there were witnesses. This time, it was being recorded. This time, change would have to come. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder. The police chief's car was approaching. Barrett shifted nervously, probably realizing that his career was unraveling with each passing second. But James Thompson wasn't thinking about revenge or punishment. Even then, handcuffed and humiliated, his mind was already turning to how this incident could spark meaningful reform. The morning sun continued to rise over Atlanta, illuminating a scene that would soon make headlines across the nation and force a long-overdue conversation about bias, authority, and the need for change in law enforcement. The next few minutes would change everything, not just for Officer Barrett and James Thompson, but for police departments across the country. The public outcry following James Thompson's unjust arrest spread rapidly across every social media platform. Within hours, the video captured by bystanders had gone viral, reaching millions of viewers worldwide. Thompson Tech employees shared their own stories about James's character, painting a picture of a leader who had transformed lives through his commitment to diversity and innovation. News crews descended upon Atlanta like a swarm. The police station's parking lot became a maze of satellite trucks and cameras. Inside, Police Chief Johnson sat at his desk, jaw clenched, as he reviewed Barrett's body camera footage. Frame by frame, the video revealed the ugly truth. There had been no traffic violation, no probable cause, nothing to justify the stop except prejudice. James's phone buzzed constantly with calls from major networks, CNN, Fox News, MSNBC. But he chose a different approach. Instead of rushing to the media, he remained in his office, still wearing his wrinkled suit from the morning. "Each crease tells part of our story," he told his concerned assistant. The company's internal messaging system overflowed with support. Employees across all departments shared their own experiences with racial profiling, creating a powerful tapestry of shared experiences. James read every message, his determination growing stronger with each personal story. Online investigators quickly unearthed Barrett's history. 6 previous complaints of racial profiling, all mysteriously dismissed without investigation. This revelation sparked even more outrage, with #JusticeForThompson trending nationwide. Civil rights organizations offered their support, but James saw beyond the immediate situation. He wasn't interested in personal revenge or financial settlements. His vision was bigger, systemic change that would prevent similar incidents from happening to others. In the midst of the chaos, a surprising ally emerged. A retired black police sergeant who had trained Officer Barrett reached out. "The system failed him, and he failed the community," the sergeant admitted. "We need to completely rebuild how we train our officers." The protesters outside the police department grew in number as the day progressed. But inside his office, James was drafting a different kind of response. His company's AI technology, originally designed for retail prediction, could be repurposed to identify patterns of bias in police stops and help create more effective training programs. As evening fell over Atlanta, news helicopters circled the city, capturing aerial shots of the growing crowds. But the real story wasn't in the protests or the viral videos. It was in the quiet determination of a man who refused to let anger overshadow opportunity. James Thompson was about to transform this moment of injustice into a movement for change that would reshape police departments across the nation. The next phase would be crucial, presenting the evidence to the police chief. And as James prepared for this meeting, he knew that what happened next would impact not just his city, but the entire country's approach to law enforcement and racial bias. Police Chief Johnson strode into the conference room where James Thompson waited. The tension was palpable as he laid out Barrett's body camera footage, departmental records, and witness statements across the polished oak table. "Mr. Thompson, what happened today is inexcusable," the chief began, his voice heavy with responsibility. "Officer Barrett's actions violated not just our policies, but our core values as law enforcement." The footage played on the wall screen, crystal clear and damning. Barrett's aggressive tone, the absence of probable cause, the escalation, it all painted a picture of textbook racial profiling. James watched silently, his expression thoughtful rather than angry. 6 previous complaints, the chief continued, spreading out Barrett's personnel file. All swept under the rug by the previous administration. That stops today. James leaned forward, his fingers interlaced. "Chief, I didn't come here for vengeance. I came here for change." He pulled out his laptop, opening a presentation he prepared in the hours since his release. Thompson Tech has developed AI systems that can track patterns in police interactions, identify early warning signs of bias, and create personalized training programs. The chief's eyes widened as James walked him through the technology. It could analyze body camera footage for signs of escalation, review traffic stop data for racial disparities, and even simulate complex scenarios for training. "This isn't about one officer," James explained. "It's about preventing the next incident before it happens." As they discussed implementation details, more evidence emerged. Surveillance footage from nearby businesses showed James had been driving perfectly normally. Cell phone videos from multiple angles confirmed his calm demeanor throughout the incident. Each piece of evidence made Barrett's actions look worse. The department's internal affairs team arrived, their investigation already underway. They discovered that Barrett had disabled his dashboard camera minutes before the stop, another violation of department policy. "Mr. Thompson," the chief said finally, "I want to make this right, not just with words, but with actions." James nodded, bringing up another slide on his laptop. "I have a proposal. Let's turn this department into a model for others. Full transparency, advanced training, community involvement. Thompson Tech will provide the technology free of charge." The meeting stretched into the evening as they hammered out details. Outside, protesters continued to gather, unaware that inside this room, real change was taking shape. The incident that began with prejudice was transforming into a catalyst for progress. As night fell over Atlanta, the chief and James shook hands on their agreement. Barrett's fate was sealed, but more importantly, a new chapter in police reform was about to begin. The consequences of James Thompson's wrongful arrest sent shockwaves through the police department. Officer Barrett sat in the Internal Affairs office, his career crumbling before his eyes. The evidence against him was overwhelming: the disabled dashboard camera, the body cam footage, his history of complaints. "Officer Barrett, your actions have brought shame to this department," the Internal Affairs investigator stated firmly. 6 previous complaints of racial profiling, a disabled dashboard camera, aggressive behavior toward a civilian without cause. Barrett slumped in his chair, his badge and gun already surrendered. The media frenzy outside had grown intense. News channels ran the story constantly, showing clips of the arrest alongside James Thompson's impressive career highlights. The contrast was stark. A billionaire tech innovator being manhandled during a baseless traffic stop. The police union, usually quick to defend officers, remained notably silent. Barrett's actions were indefensible, and they knew it. His fellow officers distanced themselves, not wanting to be associated with the growing scandal. Social media exploded with support for Thompson. #PolicingThePolice and #ThompsonStrong trended nationwide. Civil rights leaders called for systemic changes, using this incident as a rallying cry for reform. The internal investigation moved swiftly. Beyond Barrett's direct actions, it uncovered a pattern of similar incidents that had been ignored or downplayed. The previous administration's handling of complaints came under scrutiny, leading to more resignations. Local businesses near the arrest site provided additional security footage, all confirming James's perfect driving record that morning. Each new piece of evidence made Barrett's actions look more discriminatory. In a closed-door meeting, Barrett finally broke down. "I made assumptions," he admitted, his voice shaking. "I saw an expensive car in that neighborhood, and you let your prejudice override your training," the investigator finished. "That's exactly the problem." The department faced intense pressure from city officials, community leaders, and the public. The mayor himself called for immediate action, aware that the world was watching how Atlanta would handle this high-profile case. Within days, the decision came down. Barrett was terminated, his pension revoked. The department released a public statement acknowledging the wrongdoing and announcing sweeping changes to training and accountability measures. But the biggest surprise came from James Thompson himself. Instead of filing a lawsuit, he announced a partnership with the department to implement his AI-driven reform program. The very same prejudice that had led to his arrest would now help prevent similar incidents in the future. In the months following James Thompson's wrongful arrest, his vision for police reform began taking shape in remarkable ways. The Thompson Tech Police Reform Foundation launched with a $50 million investment, focusing on using technology to create lasting change in law enforcement. The AI system developed by Thompson Tech was first implemented in Atlanta's police department. Every patrol car was equipped with advanced cameras that couldn't be disabled. The AI analyzed officer interactions in real time, flagging concerning behavior patterns before they could escalate into serious incidents. Training programs were completely revamped. Officers underwent intensive bias recognition sessions using virtual reality simulations developed by Thompson Tech. These programs placed officers in various scenarios, helping them understand their unconscious biases and teaching better decision-making skills. The results were remarkable. Within 6 months, complaints against officers dropped by 60%. Traffic stop data showed a significant decrease in racial disparities. Other cities took notice, reaching out to implement similar programs. James Thompson became a regular speaker at police academies, sharing his story not with anger, but with hope for change. The retired surgeon who had trained Barrett joined the foundation, bringing valuable insights from his years of experience. Former Officer Barrett's story took an unexpected turn. After his termination, he reached out to Thompson, expressing genuine remorse. Thompson offered him a chance to contribute to the training program, using his experience as a teaching tool for other officers. The foundation expanded its reach nationwide. Police departments from Los Angeles to New York adopted the Thompson Tech system. Community trust began to rebuild. Officers reported feeling better equipped to handle challenging situations. 1 year after the incident, James Thompson stood before a graduating class of police cadets in Atlanta. "What happened to me that morning wasn't just about one officer or one traffic stop," he told them. "It was about a system that needed change. Today, you're part of that change." The program's success caught international attention. Police forces from Canada, the UK, and Australia began implementing similar reforms. What started as a moment of injustice had transformed into a global movement for positive change in law enforcement. James Thompson had turned a personal humiliation into a force for good. His response to prejudice wasn't anger or vengeance, but a systematic approach to preventing others from facing similar experiences. The morning he was wrongfully arrested had become the catalyst for a new era in policing, one where technology and humanity work together to create a fairer system for everyone. The Thompson Tech Police Reform Foundation continues its work today, constantly evolving and improving its programs. And somewhere in Atlanta, a Tesla Model S still drives the same route to work, its owner now recognized not just as a successful businessman, but as someone who chose to transform a moment of injustice into a lifetime of positive change.